Over 2 years ago, I made a video explaining the Alton Towers Iceberg that I made. I got a lot of comments asking me to do a part 2 to that video, since there was still a lot of information I didn't include there. So this is a deeper dive into the Alton Towers Iceberg. Well, a second separate iceberg that I made. If you haven't watched the first video already, it's not necessary, but if you'd like to watch it, I have it linked in the description. If you're unfamiliar with an iceberg, it's basically a chart which ranks things based upon obscurity, with well-known entries at the top and lesser-known entries at the bottom. In this case, I'll be including facts about the Alton Towers Resort, including but not limited to past rides and attractions, concepts, history about the resort, and of course events. So, without further ado, let's dive right in.
Make sure you are wearing flame-proof underwear.
At the Alton Towers Hotel, the elevators are themed, featuring music from around the resort, as well as flashing lights. Some of the soundtracks used include Nemesis, Jewel, and Toyland Tours. The Retro Squad were a series of temporary flat rides, which were installed in 2021, to allow the park to increase capacity under the restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic. The original Retro Squad consisted of 3 rides: Mixtape, a smashing jump ride, Roller Disco, a waltzers ride, and Funkenfly, a Super Trooper ride. The following year, Mixtape was replaced by a new ride named Spin Jam, a Tivoli extreme ride. In 2023, Roller Disco was replaced by a Trabant ride named Twistertron. The Retro Squad departed Alton Towers at the end of the 2023 season, with most of the rides returning to the fair circuit. In 2003, Alton Towers opened a brand new spa complex in the grounds of the Alton Towers Hotel. The spa featured various treatment rooms, including a variety of saunas, multi-sensory showers, a pool, jacuzzi, and a whirlpool. In 2014, plans for a major extension of the spa were submitted and approved, but the plans were put to one side to make way for the plans for the park's new CBeebies Land Hotel. In January 2024, it was confirmed that the spa had been permanently closed since December 31st, 2023. The Treetop Quest was a high rope course set amongst the trees of the Enchanted Forest. There were 2 courses to choose from, a low ropes course and a high ropes course. As the low ropes course was at a lower height and of shorter length, it was suitable for younger guests. Both courses featured a variety of different obstacles, including rope bridges and swinging planks, as well as a few zip lines during the course, and a large one at the finish. The Treetop Quest opened in 2015, but only operated for a few seasons, and was closed throughout the 2018 season. The attraction reopened for the 2019 season, but was operated by an external operator, and has not reopened since. The Alton Towers Hotel has been host to many specifically themed hotel rooms over the years, some more unusual than others. The hotel still has many themed rooms to choose from, but some of the past themed rooms were very unique. These were some of my favourites. The Nemesis room, which was a very creepy room of alien infestation, straight out of a horror movie. It featured the flesh and tentacles of the beast on the walls, and featured original posters of the roller coaster. It even had lovely blood red and black tiles on the bathroom wall. This room premiered with the hotel in 1996, but was removed in 2004. I can't imagine you get a great night's sleep in there. My personal favourite, the Oilblivion room, which opened alongside the roller coaster in 1998. which featured futuristic elements with the iconic orange and black colour scheme. The room's lights were activated by placing your right hand on the access panel located on the wall, and when you flushed the toilet, a futuristic voice would say, "Sanitation in progress." This room was sadly removed in 2006. The Sonic the Hedgehog room, which opened alongside the rethemed Sonic Spinball roller coaster. It featured Sonic-themed walls and carpets, along with a quiz hung up on the wall, which asked 4 questions about what the visitor can see in the room. Answering the questions and inputting the answers into the locked cabinet under the TV unlocked it and revealed a drawer full of chocolate coins. The room also included an Xbox 360, a PS3 and a Nintendo Wii, with a variety of Sonic the Hedgehog video games. Upon entering the room, guests were greeted by Sonic, voiced by Roger Craig Smith, saying one of many recordings. Other notable rooms include the Charlie and Lola room, Mike the Knight, Postman Pat, and the Nickelodeon TV room. Sir Algernon Alton is a fictional character that the story of the Alton Towers Hotel is based upon. He was first introduced in 1996, when the hotel, which is Sir Algernon Alton's home, opened. His 5-story time machine, which he invented, can be seen in the middle of the foyer. Throughout the hotel are relics from his travels around the globe, and even the reception desk is made of lost luggage. In 2008, Sir Algernon Alton starred in a stage show in the Crest Street Theatre named The Wonders of Sir Algernon's Attic. The story of the first show did not centre around Algernon himself, but his niece Lucy and her enchanted companion Snorlax. For Scarefest 2008, the show had a slight makeover to The Haunting of Sir Algernon's Attic, and in 2009, to celebrate the new Cloud Cuckoo Land area, the show became The Wonderful World of Cloud Cuckoo Land. Sir Algernon and friends left the theatre at the end of the 2010 season, however his influence can still be seen throughout the Alton Towers Hotel. Terror of the Towers is the park's original scare maze, which first appeared in 2002, before the launch of their annual Halloween event Scarefest. The original maze started near X Sector, leading to the lower door of the towers, where you would enter the maze itself. The original route wound its way up through the towers, passing through the lower floors and up into the banqueting hall, through the long gallery before exiting into Her Ladyship's gardens. Along the way, guests would encounter a series of horror scenes, including ghosts, caged ghouls, and even a stilt-walking monster. The attraction would culminate in a maze of Gothic arches shrouded in a constant mist, and lit with strobes, creating a disorientating finale, through which you were stalked by a variety of characters hiding out behind the walls. In 2003, Terror of the Towers gained a bloodthirsty banquet plotline, which saw the addition of a bloodthirsty master as the antagonist. In 2009, Terror of the Towers was reimagined to introduce the What Lies Within plotline, where a group of urban explorers had gone missing whilst exploring the ruins, and guests were part of the team sent out to find them. The original route of the maze was reversed, starting at Her Ladyship's gardens. This version of the maze ran until the end of 2017, but the Terror of the Towers was not part of the 2018 Scarefest lineup. In 2019, the Scare Maze was reimagined once again to the Attic, where guests would explore the upper floors of the towers, and were told the chilling tale of the governess, who roams the eaves of the house looking for vengeance after the death of children under her protection. Master Blaster is a water slide, or self-proclaimed water coaster, located in the Alton Towers Water Park. At 208 metres long, it's the second longest Master Blaster slide in the UK. The slide is quite restrictive, however, since the maximum combined weight of riders is 21 stone, or approximately 133 kilograms. The Squirrel Nutty Ride was a children's ride which opened in 1986, set amongst the trees of the Storybook Land area of the park. The ride featured acorn-shaped cars with a squirrel on the back, with pedals inside the car which could be used to increase the speed, which were later removed. In 2014, the area was rethemed to CBeebies Land, and the Squirrel Nutty Ride to Get Set Go Treetop Adventure, with a new theming and vehicle shells added. The ride now focuses on the CBeebies Buckbees. The Pagoda Fountain is a 3-story, octagonal-shaped, painted cast-iron structure with Chinese hanging lamp bells on an octagonal white Hollington sandstone base. Work started on the structure in 1826 and was completed 6 years later in 1832. The cast-iron structure was modelled on the Toho Pagoda in Canton, southern China. Originally, it's believed to have been elaborately painted, firstly in a stone colour, then in a deep red, with its decorative features picked out in gold leaf gilding. After 1940, the Gothic decorative cast-iron railings to the first and second floor balconies were removed, presumably for the war effort. In 2017, restoration work took place on the Pagoda Fountain, including cast-iron crack repair and mechanical bracing reinforcements. Peugeot 207 Driving School was the original name for the attraction, now known as Cuckoo Cars Driving School. The original attraction was part of a sponsorship with Peugeot, and the design of the attraction's cars were inspired by the Peugeot 207 design. It originally opened in 2006 in the Cred Street area of the park. The sponsorship also saw the fabulous toy shop converted into a Peugeot showroom. In 2010, the 207 was removed from its name, with the attraction simply being known as Peugeot Driving School. In 2012, the sponsorship with Peugeot ended, and the branding was removed. I wanted to mention this here because it seems like an interesting choice to advertise a brand of cars to young children. I can't really imagine that was very effective. The Swiss Cottage is a Grade II listed building, built in 1835 to house the 16th Earl of Shrewsbury's harpist, who was commissioned to entertain guests who visited the gardens. The design is of a Tudor Gothic style, constructed of orange brick, Hollington sandstone plinth, and arched headstone window and door frames. The original Swiss cottage featured a thatched roof, which was later replaced by a clay-tiled roof before the end of the 1800s. From the 1920s, when Alton Towers became an attraction, the cottage housed a tea room, and later a restaurant, which operated into the early 1990s. In recent years, it has been used for offices, storage, and venue space, but now remains largely vacant, apart from storage over the winter months. In 2019, following the collapse of the modern felted flat roof to the rear kitchen extension, Alton Towers submitted a planning application to carry out restoration work on the rear of the building. The plans also outline possible future uses of the Swiss cottage, such as an estate office, bringing it back into food and beverage use, or possibly opening it as a museum of memorabilia, although no plans for any of this has yet been confirmed. In 2017, a brand new scare maze arose, named The Welcoming Be Chosen. The maze was dubbed the prequel to SW8, and introduced much of the storyline around the roller coaster, with several sets of runes and the roller coaster's logo scattered throughout. The storyline of the maze introduced the Bjornen, a mysterious group who hosted a festival to celebrate their own version of Halloween and invited outsiders to take part in their ritual. Mutiny Bay was transformed into a village. As guests ventured through the village, there was much sinister theming, and at one point a hood was placed over guests' heads with only a rope to guide them. The hood was later removed, revealing the horrific practices of the welcoming ritual, encountering thorned blindfolds and individuals burned beyond recognition. Following a corpse-lined path, guests would eventually reach the finale of the maze, where half-naked sacrifices appeared to be taken over by some unseen forces. Standing atop an elevated platform, a member of the Bjornen would condemn guests to their fate, to feed the flames, as a fire burst up in front of guests. The welcoming returned to the Scarefest lineup the following year, but with several changes. The hooded section was removed, and areas were changed to make them feel more confined. In the gardens of Alton Towers, there is a large garden folly named Stonehenge. The structure is Grade 2 listed and believed to date back to 1830. In 2018, ahead of the open season, repair work took place on the large stone lintels of Stonehenge. In 2012, with the opening of Secret Weapons 7 looming, a new scare attraction was added to the Scarefest lineup. The maze was named the Sanctuary, the oldest establishment of the Ministry of Joy, and had been closed to new patients for 50 years. The Sanctuary was a medical rehabilitation centre concerned with the correction of the stresses and strains of the modern world and was looking for new advocates to conduct their experiments on. After being checked into the Sanctuary, the Chief Medical Officer of the facility, Dr. Kalman, would introduce himself over a video feed and explain the treatment at the facility, which he described as social compliance. A nurse then batched advocates before admitting them into the Sanctuary. Once inside the maze, advocates would once again meet Dr. Kalman, this time in person. He explained some of the therapies that took place at the facility, also briefly mentioning some of the controversies around the facility and why it was shut down. Upon entering the facility, guests were able to see the treatments firsthand, meeting the first of the patients. An incoherent video played on the screen, which ended with a ball of fire, leading to a patient becoming distressed due to the loss of their TV. Guests would then enter the kitchen before being led to the wards, where the normalization or brainwashing process would take place, with bright lights, pungent smells, and water showers. Guests would then be led into the operating theatre, with the mortuary close by. They were then trapped within a disorienting cage, with only strobe light to guide them through. This was said to complete the correctional procedure. The scare attraction received excellent reviews upon opening. Although it was not clear then, it introduced some of the key concepts for the upcoming roller coaster. With the delayed opening of the Smiler, the Sanctuary was reopened during the start of the 2013 season as a free attraction until the roller coaster was opened. It also returned for the annual Scarefest event in 2013 and 2014. The Ice Age 4D experience was a cinematic attraction which combined 3D visuals with lighting, snow, wind, and other interactive elements to make the experience more immersive. The cinema originally opened in 2012 in the Kugelland Theatre to coincide with the arrival of Ice Age at the park. Outside the 4D cinema, characters from Ice Age also roamed the park to meet and greet with guests, although the Ice Age 4D experience remained at the resort in 2015. The previous film, which consisted of various scenes from the movies, was replaced by the short film No Time for Nuts, which saw Scrat at the centre of the action. The attraction operated until the end of the 2016 season. Originally built in 1824 and designed by Robert Abraham and Charles Talbot, the Prospect Tower is a Grade 2 listed building and was constructed on Thompson's Rock. It offers views across the valley towards the tower's ruins. It was previously possible to climb the tower to make the most of some of the most unusual and stunning views of the towers and gardens. However, sadly the tower has been closed to the public for some time. It had fallen into a state of disrepair with graffiti adorning the lower levels, and in 2014, Alton Towers submitted a planning application to carry out restoration work on the Prospect Tower. The work involved the reinstatement of the cast iron railings, replacement of timber doors and windows, and repair of the ground floor paved area, as well as the renewal of lead work, restoration of the gold leaf features, and redecorating inside and out. The restoration work was completed in 2016, and the Prospect Tower has regained its former glory. If you look at Alton Towers on Google Street View, you're transported back in time to 2009. A time when rides such as The Flume, Ripsaw, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory were still there. When Galactica was air, and the Black Hole's tent was still an X sector. Cloud Cuckoo Land was bright and full of life. And the charming Storybook Land before it became CBeebies Land. And yeah, Ugland. Even Hex was open. And the Sky Road was closed. Oh, of course, this was after the 2009 fire. If you ever feel like taking a trip down memory lane, check it out for yourself. And Google, please do not update the Street View for Alton Towers. In 2010, a brand new scare maze was added to the Scarefest lineup, named the Carnival of Screams. Originally opening in the woods close to the Alton Towers Hotel, guests would enter the maze through the mouth of a sinister-looking clown. A distorted version of the Toyland Tours soundtrack played, and many props from the former attraction could be found throughout. In 2011, the carnival was relocated to X Sector. Inside the tent was the former Black Hole roller coaster. To make way for the reconstruction of the Smiler in 2012, the maze was moved once again to Adventureland, where it operated for its final 2 years. Each year saw slight changes to the layout as it moved around the park, with a tweaked storyline and a fresh set of characters, such as Kumba the Killer Gorilla for 2010, The Living Dummy for 2011, and Jackknife for 2013. On July 13, 1996, Tina Turner performed at Alton Towers. The concert attracted more than 35,000 people and included supporting acts Toto and Peter Andre. The concert ended with a firework finale. 2015 saw the introduction of 2 new scare mazes to the Scarefest lineup, one of which was Subspecies The Endgames, which is said to have been the resort's most intense horror maze to date. There was also a brand new after-hours experience added, named Subspecies Operation Lockdown, contained within the confines of the maze, but with additional rooms. Subspecies The Endgames would have guests descend underground to a post-apocalyptic sewer system infested by an alien species. Guests became part of a feeding ritual known as the Endgames, which had turned into a sinister contest. The maze was the first at Scarefest to feature physical contact and separation, which made the attraction very scary but successful. It went on to win the title of UK's Best Halloween Attraction at the 2016 ScareCon Scare Awards. The maze ran for 5 years with minor changes to the attraction, including changes to the endings and later the addition of dead ends, leading many people to getting lost. Before the Smiler was built, there were alternate concepts for the theming of the ride, which appeared much more eerie and realistic than the theming of the finished product. With a more abandoned hospital look to the station, corridors and queue line. There was even an additional head chopper element that would have added a lot to the overall experience. Even the Marmalizer looked more spider-like. Wait a minute. Ultimately, this concept was abandoned in favour of a less realistic and more modern theme, which is a shame because I think this theme would have been so much cooler. In 1988, the Alton Beast was installed in the coaster corner area of the park. The coaster was a Jetstar 3 model manufactured by Schwarzkopf, a similar model to the Black Hole, but with a larger height and footprint. When the coaster first arrived at the park, there were no trains with the coaster. Fortunately, its arrival coincided with the Black Hole receiving an upgrade to accommodate larger trains, so the old trains from the Black Hole were used on the Beast. In 1991, the Beast was sent back to the manufacturer for a refurbishment, and was returned with a new name, the New Beast, as well as a new colour scheme, which led guests to theorise that it was actually a brand new coaster. When it was returned though, it was confirmed by staff that it was the same coaster. The New Beast opened in Thunder Valley when it returned to the park, and operated until 1997, when it was removed entirely, leaving a large footprint empty for what would later become the site of Air. After being removed, the Beast was transported to Mexico, to a park named Divertido, and was renamed to Space Mountain, and housed in a tent similar to that of the Black Hole. It was later moved and operated in Colombia in a park named Celetir Magica, though it was removed at the end of 2017. Its current location is unknown. The Alton Mouse was a Vekoma steel wild mouse roller coaster that opened in the area known as the Coaster Corner in 1988. The Alton Mouse previously operated at Wiener Prater in Vienna, Austria, under the name Speedy Gonzales. The roller coaster featured a very unique tilted lift hill, since the previous installation housed the lift hill inside a spinning tunnel to simulate the feeling of rotating upside down. This roller coaster was the only wild mouse roller coaster to be manufactured by Vekoma, and the design featured corners that were not as tight compared to traditional wild mouse models, making it less jerky. Due to the proximity of the coaster to the nearby Alton village, the installation of the Alton Mouse resulted in an influx of noise complaints from residents of the village, which ultimately resulted in the closure of the entirety of the Coaster Corner area. The roller coaster was leased, meaning that Alton Towers did not actually own the ride, and the Alton Mouse was removed from the park in 1991, making it the shortest-lived roller coaster in Alton Towers history. 2014 saw the opening of CBeebies Land at Alton Towers, along with a range of attractions for young children. Nearness Science Lab was amongst those attractions, to open in 2014, based on the CBeebies program Nina and the Neurons. The site formerly operated as an education centre for Old MacDonald's farmyard. The attraction featured a range of hands-on experiments, which explored the 5 senses and how they work. Experiments included exploring how different textures affect your sense of touch, learning how sound waves work to carry sound from one end of the tube to another, and identifying a selection of different smells, both pleasant and not so pleasant. In the queue line for Oilblivion, you may have noticed this interesting gadget. It's actually a projector from the planetarium attraction, which closed in 1987, but now it makes a nice queue line decoration, I suppose. Riverbank I Spy was an interactive boat ride, which opened in the Old MacDonald's farmyard area of the park. It first opened in 1989 as the Canal boat ride in the former Britannia farm. In its early years, the animals of the farm were the main attraction, and there was little in the way of additional scenery, aside from the occasional willow arches. With the retheme of the area from Safeway Farm into Old MacDonald's farmyard, the area became more focused on rides than animals, and the ride received an update. The ride was transformed into a journey around a number of 2D sets, featuring a whole host of farmyard animals, with the addition of on-ride audio, asking them to identify animals as they pass by pressing a button, which then played the matching sound. In 2007, the sets were updated to become 3D, and with the additional elements bringing the ride to life. At the end of the 2013 season, Riverbank I Spy was closed and rethemed to suit its new CBeebies Land surroundings, opening in 2014 as the Night Garden Magical Boat Ride. In 1984, 2 very similar rides opened at Alton Towers. One named Magic Carpet and the other was 1001 Nights. The magic carpet was manufactured by Zero and originally owned by a German showman. Before being sold to Alton Towers, it was located in Festival Park. 1001 Nights was manufactured by Weber and was also installed in Festival Park. Later on in the 1984 season, due to the popularity of the magic carpet ride. 1001 Nights was taller than the earlier model and offered great views of the park and surrounding countryside. 1001 Nights became much more popular than the magic carpet, as subsequently the magic carpet was removed at the end of the 1985 season and sold to Scottish showmen Matt and Doug Taylor. 1001 Nights remained a popular ride, but with increasing restrictions on height at the park, as well as issues with safety inspections. The ride was removed in 1994 after operating for 11 seasons. In 2000, 2 new attractions, based on the children's television show Barney and Friends, opened in the Crad Street area of Alton Towers. Barney's Playground and Barney's Theatre. Barney's Playground was a play area for children. It housed 3 attractions for children of different heights, including a large bouncy castle with tunnels, and compartments full of softballs and inflatable animals. Barney's Theatre was a sing-along show featuring songs from the TV show. In the show, Barney welcomed his friends, the audience, to the treehouse and led into a sing-song. After the show, children and families were able to meet Barney. The sing-along show featured the voice of Duncan Brennan, who is one of the voice actors who provided the voice of Barney after the retirement of Bob West in 2000. The attraction also featured the voices of Baby Bop and BJ, Julie Johnson and Patty Wirtz. Barney left the resort in 2002. In 1987, an animatronic dog named Henry was added to the park. He performed country and western songs behind a glass window in Tower Street. The singing dog was later renamed Hank to make way for a more cuddly mascot, Henry Hound, who was based upon the original Henry. Henry Hound quickly became the park's main mascot, and was said to be a descendant of the heraldic hounds of the Earl of Shrewsbury, the hounds which can be found in the statues around the estate, such as near the entrance to Hex. Over the years, Henry appeared, along with his lifelong friend Henrietta, in a variety of entertainment around the park, such as magic shows, ice shows, and parades. He even had his own series of books, as well as appearing in comic strips in The Wonderful Times, the magazine for the Alton Towers Fun Club. When Two Swords took over the park, Henry received a makeover. His famous yellow t-shirt was replaced by a more modest pair of dungarees. The Hound's days in the park was sadly numbered, and Henry left Alton Towers in 1993. Following his departure, his parade was discontinued. For many years, Alton Towers went without a mascot. However, in 2005, Henry Hound made a triumphant return to the Towers, where the new and improved Hound appeared in the Daily Carnival. His return was short-lived, however, and he left once again in 2007 and hasn't been seen since. On January 6, 2023, a video was uploaded to YouTube by a channel named Out of Society, titled Sneaking into Alton Towers and Having a Party. In the video, 2 men dressed in black and wearing balaclavas got into Alton Towers at night and accessed restricted areas of the park, and even filmed themselves on top of Oilblivion dancing. It is believed that the pair caused criminal damage during the night, and Staffordshire police were called to the park the following morning and launched an investigation. A spokesperson for the Alton Towers Resort said, in 2018, Merlin Entertainment's group was granted a High Court injunction against all unauthorised access to all of our sites across England and Wales. By illegally trespassing, Out of Society have risked their own lives, but also endangered our visitors, employees, and our own property, and we take that extremely seriously. They now face a significant fine, imprisonment, and seizure of their assets. We immediately started an internal investigation and are working closely with the police. Further action will be taken. I couldn't find any information about the outcomes of the investigation, but the video appears to have been taken down from YouTube. For Scarefest 2010, 13's opening year, live actors could be found wandering around the Dock Forest area, and even in the queue line for 13 after dark, visitors could interact with rats, and the girl from the 13 advert, also known as the 13 Girl. Although not particularly scary, the actors added some atmosphere to the rides area, providing some scares by jumping out at unsuspecting guests. Following the departure of Barney the Dinosaur in 2002, the Tweenies took over the theatre and playground area of Cred Street in 2003. The show was once again a sing-along spectacle, and the playground was updated to fit the new theme. The playground contained 3 separate attractions for children of different heights. In 1998, Alton Towers opened several familiar high street fast food chains around the park. These included KFC and McDonald's. In X Sector, there was a joint Pizza Hut and KFC restaurant named Meltdown. And in Merry England, there was a charmingly decorated Jester's Court McDonald's store. There was also a small McDonald's store in Forbidden Valley named The Generator. In 2008, all of the McDonald's stores were replaced by Burger King, and in the same year, Pizza Hut also left the park. In 2012, Merlin began to bring their own in-house fast food chains, replacing the high street brands. In 2010, Alton Towers hosted a free concert on the front lawns of the towers. The 1980s concert had headline acts of Rick Astley, Bananarama, Kim Wilde, and Curiosity Killed the Cat. On August 13, 1987, Alton Towers celebrated the grand opening of the monorail at the park. The ride was launched by William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk in Star Trek. The reason that Shatner was chosen to open the monorail was because of the somewhat futuristic design of the original monorail. Before it was given the bright and colourful patterns which were added in 2008. Oilblivion, the Black Hole, is a B&M dive coaster located at Gardaland, Italy, which is operated by Millen Entertainments. Due to its name, logo, and being the same make and model, it is often seen as the sister coaster to Oilblivion Alton Towers, albeit a longer upgraded coaster with 2 inversions and floorless trains. The second part of its name, the Black Hole, also seems to give reference to the former Alton Towers roller coaster. Many people believe that due to the track being white, this is the Lord of Light's version of Oilblivion, and the original Oilblivion being black represents the Lord of Darkness. But sadly, there is no part of the coaster's story that confirms this. With it being space-themed as opposed to Oblivion's sinister government organisation theme, this was a missed opportunity by Merlin. In 1995, following the opening of Nemesis 1 year prior, Two Swords began installing flat rides to absorb some of the crowds attracted by the park's expansion. The Energizer, a Mondial Supernova ride, was the first to be installed and was located in the Festival Park area. In 1998, it was relocated to X Sector alongside the new Oilblivion roller coaster, where it was rethemed to suit the theming of the area. Following the installation of Submission in X Sector in 2001, Energizer was relocated once again to Ugland, where it was renamed to Bone Shaker, with a new prehistoric theme. After it was relocated, the settings of the ride were changed, making it more family-friendly, and sadly less thrilling. Consequently, the ride's popularity declined, whilst it became increasingly unreliable, with a lot of downtime and maintenance required. Bone Shaker was closed in 2003 and left standing but not operating for the 2004 season. In 2005, it was removed completely to make way for the park's new roller coaster, Rita, Queen of Speed. The ride lives on, however, since it was sent back to the manufacturer after being removed and was refurbished. In 2006, the ride opened at Terra Mythica in Benidorm, Spain, where it operates under the name La Colera de Achilles. which translates to the Wrath of Achilles. The Four-Man Bob was a fast-paced roller coaster manufactured by Zero that opened in the Coaster Corner area of the park in 1985. The coaster was very unique since it had a manual braking system in which the operator had to reduce the speed of bobsleighs from 35 to 0 miles per hour in just 11 seconds, which made it a very physically demanding ride to operate. Due to the ride's design, it was unable to operate with less than 3 people per bobsleigh. Otherwise, it was unable to complete the coaster's circuit. The ride was originally built for a German showman in 1975 and was known as Vera Bob. It later opened for a single season at Toyland Park in Germany before an accident resulted in its closure. It then moved to Trentham Gardens in the UK for a single season before being moved to Alton Towers in 1985. It operated for 5 years until Tussauds Group took over the park and removed it. The Four-Man Bob has since operated at many parks, including Pleasure Island in 1993 for 5 years, and Flamingo Land in 1998. The coaster was later purchased and refurbished by Spinball Whizzer, who replaced the bobsleigh trains with minecarts. It was then leased to Groveland in Wales, where it operated under the name Thunderbolt for 2 years. After its removal from Groveland, it was stored and later resurfaced at Loudon Castle, where it operated for the park's final season before being put back into storage. After 10 years, the ride was moved to Family Park in France, where it still operates to this day. Wow, the Four-Man Bob certainly got around. Cine 2000 was a cinema experience which opened with the park in 1980. The attraction immersed guests by surrounding them with the film, which was projected onto half of the dome's interior. The films used were typically motion-based, with the camera mounted on a variety of moving vehicles, leading to a rather disorientating experience for the audience, who had no means to steady themselves as they stood and followed the dynamic movements on the screen surrounding them. The attraction boasted a very high throughput, with at least 3 sittings per hour. However, some guests were nauseated by the disorienting effects, combined with prior stomach-churning rides on other attractions. Due to its popularity, the park later decided to invest in a Cine 360 upgrade, where the film was projected onto the entirety of the dome's interior. The upgraded attraction opened in 1984, but unfortunately was not as popular as Cine 2000, presumably due to the cinema craze dying out. In 1988, Cine 360 was closed and transformed into a 3D cinema, which operated until 2004 and is said to have closed due to staffing issues. In 1994, following the departure of the iconic Henry Hound mascot and the end of his ice show, Alton Towers needed a replacement headliner for the entertainment lineup. Peter Rabbit and Friends on Ice became the replacement. Based on the classic Beatrix Potter children's book, the show featured elaborate costumes based upon the illustrations from the book. Each animal head went through a week-long sculpting process, which created the mold used to make a plastic mask, which was then covered with fur. Any easily damaged areas of the mask were made to be easily detachable, so individual parts could be replaced without the need to replace the entire mask. The original Peter Rabbit and Friends show ran until 1997 and was replaced by a new tale in 1998. Beatrix Potter herself replaced Lucy to become Peter's human companion in an anthology of her tales. Other than Peter Rabbit, the cast of characters completely changed. The tales told in the show became more interchangeable, with both Jeremy Fisher and Mrs. Tiggywinkle making reappearances. Peter Rabbit and Friends performed for the final time at the end of summer 2001, before being replaced by Webmaster and Adventure on Ice for the following season. Doom & Sons was a haunted house-style walkthrough attraction themed to a funeral parlour. It became part of the first fully themed area of the park in 1981, named Talbot Street, which was themed to a Victorian street. The attraction involved walking through a number of scenes, where guests would interact with their surroundings, triggering scares by opening doors. Guests would visit various rooms in the funeral parlour, including a haunted library and a music room, as well as the Chapel of Rest. The main cast of characters was made up of skeletons, though various members of the parlour's staff also make memorable appearances, culminating in a performance by a revenant organist. Due to Tussauds taking over ownership and later opening the new haunted house attraction in Gloomy Wood, Doom & Sons was closed at the end of the 1992 season. Astro Dancer was a breakdance ride manufactured by Huss, which opened in the Fantasy World area of the park in 1993. In 1997, with the retheme of Fantasy World to X Sector taking place, the ride was relocated to Festival Park and was renamed to Dino Dancers when the area was rethemed to Ugland. The ride was still very popular, being located in a newly themed area. The ride was later removed from Ugland in the 2000 season, and did not appear again until 2002, when it reopened in Forbidden Valley. It received a retheme and was renamed to Dynamo, but unfortunately it became increasingly unreliable, operating only occasionally for the 2003 season. Popularity of the ride was at an all-time low, due to it being overshadowed by more thrilling rides in the area. In February 2004, the ride was finally removed, and sat in storage behind Jewel for a year, before being sold on to Mondial. When Nemesis first opened, guests could hear the legend of Nemesis whilst in the queue line. The story was narrated by the former Doctor Who, Tom Baker, and played the Nemesis soundtrack composed by Graham Smart in the background. The story told how the creature was unearthed, and how it came to be, ending with the iconic line,
"Sit back, it's fright time."
In 2003, just 1 year after the opening of SW5, Alton Towers submitted plans for a giant wooden roller coaster, which stretched from an area behind the Dark Forest all the way to Forbidden Valley. The proposed coaster was a concept conceived by John Waldley, whose dream was to build a wooden roller coaster in the UK. The coaster would have had almost 200 foot drops and 2 lift hills, as well as coming within feet of air, before travelling back towards the Dark Forest. The plan was unfortunately plagued with many challenges. The coaster would have had to be mostly below the tree line, with the exception of the second lift hill. It also would have meant that 142 trees would have needed to be removed, which may have posed concerns for the Environmental Agency. In addition, there were concerns over the noise of the attraction, due to Alton Towers being subject to noise restrictions. The plans for the wooden roller coaster were ultimately withdrawn, due to the concerns regarding the height and noise of the roller coaster, with Alton Towers stating that they would later submit amended plans. However, this never came to be. In 2015, it appears that Alton Towers revisited the plans to build a wooden roller coaster when a formal screening opinion was submitted, with the ride of Timber Truss construction to be located in Forbidden Valley, but it is believed that these plans later merged into Wickerman, which later replaced the flume. Oilblivion has one of the most recognisable and arguably one of the best soundtracks amongst the roller coasters at Alton Towers, but a little known fact is that the soundtrack was not specifically made for the roller coaster. In fact, the soundtrack was just a piece of stock music created by Dominic Glynn called Stressed Out from an album named Strictly Drum and Bass. The music was perhaps an afterthought and not a priority when designing the ride. However, I personally believe that the music fits Oblivion's theme perfectly. Ejunaika is a 4th dimension roller coaster located at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan. The roller coaster, manufactured by S&S Arrow, was opened in 2006. This roller coaster is actually tied with the Smiler for the world record of most inversions on a roller coaster, with both roller coasters having 14 inversions. This is often disputed, due to 11 of Egenika's inversions being inversions of the seat, rather than inversions of the track, whereas all of the Smidler's 14 inversions are track inversions. Nickelodeon Out of Control was a large funhouse-style attraction based on the television channel Nickelodeon, located in the Cred Street area of the park. The attraction was originally supposed to open in 1996, however it was delayed until 1997 due to technical issues. Guests were split up into groups of 20 people and guided around the attraction. Upon entering the first room, the guide introduced themselves and asked everyone to cheer. Each room had different features, including a shadow wall where guests could leave their print on the wall when the lights changed, a room where guests could press and pull many things to make noises, and the opportunity to throw balls into hoops. After the tour, guests would enter a theatre and footage of them in the attraction was shown. Unfortunately, the attraction was not very popular and had a very low throughput. The attraction was closed after just 2 seasons of opening. It was left standing but not operating, and the building that housed the attraction has not been reused since. Following the 1986 World Exposition on Transportation and Communication in Vancouver, Canada, Alton Towers purchased the monorail that was used at the exposition for an estimated £15 million. The 3.5-mile line carried passengers to each zone of the expo. Originally, the opening of the monorail at Alton Towers was intended to coincide with the opening of the park's new entrance plaza, Tower Street, in 1986. However, due to shipping complications, it was delayed by a year. How would you even ship that thing? Lava Lump was a pay-per-play children's climbing wall, originally located in Ogland when it opened in 1999. It had a weight restriction, where guests were required to weigh between 3 and 17 stone. In 2006, it was relocated to Forbidden Valley to make way for Rita Queen of Speed. Then later, in 2012, it was removed from the park completely for the construction of Nemesis Subterra. For Scarefest in 2008 and 2009, Jewel was transformed into Jewel Live. All of the ride's laser targets were switched off, and the house was filled with live actors who would jump out at ride cars. The ride soundtrack was also changed with a less energetic, more spooky sounding theme. Guests would walk through the graveyard in the outside queue line, which was also populated with actors as gravediggers, before approaching the closed front door where they were welcomed to the house by the butler and maid. Jewel Live gave a refreshing, immersive experience, bringing back the traditional feel of a haunted house. Although with some lighting and effects turned off, it meant that there were sections of darkness. It's also said that there was a lack of actors in the first year, but in its second year there were many more actors throughout the ride. At Scarefest 2010, Alton Towers did something similar to transform Jewel, but this time it was family-friendly Scarefest characters throughout the ride, and it became Skelvin's Haunted Adventure. Beneath the steps of Thompson's Rock, which lead to the Prospect Tower, there is a small cave known as the Bear Cave. This is where a black bear was kept during the 1800s. Back in the day, guests could get very close to the bear, and it is said that in 1857, the bear actually bit off a guest's hand. After the bear passed away, it's said to have been stuffed and put on display at the house, and was later sold along with the rest of the contents of the house. In 2011, the Go 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 show arrived in the Koyren Theatre. Go 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 were a British musical pop group aimed at young children, with the group comprising of 5 members: Jade, Holly, Gemma, Carl, and Steve, and each member was recognisable with their distinctive costumes. The plot of the show was that Sir Attenborough Baffled, a wildlife filmmaker and brother of Mr. Baffled, had gone missing in the Cloud Cuckooland jungle. To solve the mystery, Mr. Baffled sent his team of pop star pals, Go Go Go, to find him. Throughout the adventure, the audience, children and adults alike, were encouraged to join in by dancing, singing, and even learning some very special martial arts. The cast of the show were often met in the toy shop after the show, and throughout the park during the day. The show ended after just one season at Alton Towers, and was replaced by the Ice Age 4D experience. But Go 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 went on to have a very successful career, performing in London's West End, and even having their own TV show on the Nick Jr. channel. In March 2016, ahead of the opening of Galactica, the rethemed version of Air, retired Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield was the first person to try out the brand new ride experience. Following his ride, Chris said that it was the closest thing he had experienced to a virtual trip across the universe, stating, "The ride is visually and sensually evocative, and I'm sure it will capture the imagination of those aboard it." In July 2011, Alton Towers started a campaign where guests were invited to vote for their favourite roller coaster at the resort. The competition was between Nemesis, Oilblivion, Air, 13, or Rita. As part of the campaign, a video was released featuring ex-politicians Neil and Christine Hamilton, where they refer to it as an election, encouraging people to vote, with Neil biased towards Oilblivion and Christine towards Nemesis. The campaign also saw videos released on the resort's YouTube channel featuring staff at the various rides asking people to vote for their rides, with clips of the original TV adverts in the videos.
There is no rational explanation.
There is no way out.
There is no happy ending to this story. Welcome to the unknown. Welcome to eternal darkness. Welcome to Oilblivion.
After 2 months of voting, it was revealed that Nemesis had been crowned the all-time greatest ride. With an overwhelming majority of 41% of the vote, Oilblivion took the runner-up spot, with a voting percentage of 21%. Air narrowly missed out on second place with 20% of the vote. In fourth place, it was 13 with 10% of the vote, and in last place, of course, it was Rita, with only 8% of the vote for Rita. Octopus was a fairground ride, a type of ride commonly referred to as a spin and spew, manufactured by FAH for a German showman. The ride was purchased by Alton Towers and installed in the Aqualand area in 1984. The ride proved so popular that a near-identical ride with a different theme, named the Spider, was installed at the park in the following season. After Two Swords took over the park, the ride was identified as not fitting in with the park's new direction, and was removed from the Aqualand area in 1991 to make way for the area's retheme to Katanga Canyon. The ride spent one season operating in Talbot Street before being removed entirely in 1992. It was then purchased by a Dutch showman. It suffered major fire damage in 2003. It was then purchased by a German showman who now travels with the ride known as Beach Monster. The Mississippi Showboat was a unique funhouse-style attraction set aboard a classic paddle steamer. The attraction opened in 1984 in the Aqualand area, in a dry dock overlooking the boating lake. It featured classic funhouse elements, such as narrow corridors, undulating floors, crazy mirrors, and a finale of a rotating barrel. The attraction even had a classic jazz band, who could often be found playing on the decks of the showboat at various times of the day. With the ownership change of the park in 1990, and the attraction's unfortunately low throughput and high maintenance, as well as its high safety risk features, it was amongst the first to be scrapped by Two Swords in 1991. Although the ride was removed, the jazz band remained at the park until 1994, performing at the end of Tower Street. The attraction remained standing but not operating for some time before being sold to a concessionaire based at Breen Leisure Park for the 1992 season, and remained there until 2000. It is believed that the showboat later resurfaced at Poland, at Salesian Amusement Park. In 2007, the iconic and much-loved Air soundtrack was changed. The soundtrack that replaced the original soundtrack was originally used on the London Eye. It is believed that the soundtrack change was due to licensing issues with the original soundtrack, due to the merger in 2007 of Two Swords and Mellon Entertainments, who coincidentally own the London Eye. It's safe to assume that it was cheaper for Merlin to use a soundtrack from one of their other attractions than to renew the license of the original soundtrack. I'm not sure if it's a coincidence, but the soundtrack sounds rather similar to the Galactica soundtrack, which leads me to believe that Imascore took inspiration from this soundtrack to make the rethemed coaster's soundtrack. Alton Towers has previously had some record-breaking roller coasters. However, in May 2015, a different sort of record was broken at the resort. To celebrate the first anniversary of the In the Night Garden magical boat ride at CBeebies Land, Iggle Piggle from In the Night Garden unveiled a giant polar fleece blanket. It was then verified by Guinness World Records to be the largest polar fleece blanket in the world, measuring 98.8 square meters. Alton Station was built in 1849 as part of the Churnet Valley branch line for the North Staffordshire Railway. The station was built in an Italian villa style, making it unique amongst the stations in the NSR line. The station experienced a great increase in visitors in 1924 when Alton Towers became a tourist attraction, and in 1954 the station was renamed to Alton Towers due to the growing popularity of the attraction. Passenger service was greatly reduced in 1960, leading to the eventual closure of the station in 1965 by the British Railway Board. Since it was closed, it had become victim to vandalism, and to overcome this, it was purchased by Staffordshire County Council. In 1979, it was purchased by the Landmark Trust, who converted the building into holiday accommodation and renamed it to Alton Station. This is still the case, and you can actually stay there. The Space 1999 exhibition opened in Talbot Street in 1982. The exhibition featured many models, costumes, and props from the Space 1999 science fiction program, created by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson. This exhibition had previously been displayed in an exhibition in Blackpool named Space City. By 1980, viewing numbers were down significantly on the television program, and the exhibition was then moved from Blackpool to Alton Towers. Unfortunately, many of the models were damaged or lost during transit. In addition to the Space 1999 exhibition, there was also another exhibition on display at the same time, with puppets and models from the Thunderbird program, which was also created by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson. Both exhibitions were on display until 1990. In the gardens of Alton Towers, there is a toilet block which was installed for the convenience of guests visiting the gardens. It is now abandoned, and inside, the toilets can be seen smashed up, with mould and weeds growing throughout. The Alpine Bobsleigh was a dual-track bobsleigh-style thrill ride, which was opened by the British Olympic bobsleigh team in the former Springfield Centre of the park in 1979. It was technically the first thrill ride installed at the park, powered entirely by gravity, and was built on a natural slope. The ride could reach top speeds of 40 km per hour, and there was a manual brake that could be used to control the speed. The ride was very popular, however it had a very low throughput, meaning that queues could get extremely long. While this certainly had some bearing on the downfall of the ride, it was proudly stated that the ride's track was made of asbestos, In 1985, a ban of asbestos was imposed, which seemingly sealed the fate of the much-loved alpine bobsleigh, and it was officially closed in 1986. Although the ride was removed, guests have previously spotted panels of the track in the woods of Alton Towers, behind the dark forest. During Easter of 2006, Alton Towers transformed into Chocolate Towers, with a giant chocolate volcano named Chocovius at the bottom of Tower Street, which erupted twice a day. There was also a show that took place in Cred Street Theatre, an Easter extravaganza in Fountain Square where guests could decorate eggs and meet Father Chocolate in his grotto. The conference centre in the hotel was also transformed into the Time Out Lounge, which featured a chocolate money casino, while the Splash Landings Hotel hosted a chocolate gunge tank game show. Chocolate Towers returned again the following Easter. However, the event was very different, with no chocolate volcano or Father Chocolate to be found. Instead, the park focused on traditional Easter bunnies and a giant chocolate egg. Room 13 was one of the earliest scare attractions introduced at the resort, first opening in 2007. Unlike a scare maze, this was a scare room, which was located in the Alton Towers Hotel. Room 13 was a haunted room which actors visited throughout the night. The story was based on an abandoned part of the hotel, where its staff were trapped inside the walls, awaking once a year to tell their story. The experience lasted till 2 AM. Although it was well received, there was difficulty around operating the experience inside of a busy hotel at night, and the scare rooms did not return in 2008. In 2010, the scare room concept was revisited, but with a theme related to the 13 story, with actors draped in vines and even a visit from the famous 13 girl. In 2011, the scare room returned, but with a more traditional haunted hotel theme. In 2006, it was revealed that Alton Towers were planning a major retheme of the runaway mine train, following the incident that occurred on the coaster in the same year. The retheme was supposed to make the coaster into a karaoke coaster featuring microphones, making the coaster interactive as part of a deal with SingStar, a music video game series. There was apparently some debate about whether or not to go ahead with the retheme, but ultimately the plan was scrapped and the runaway mine train reopened in 2007 with its classic mine train theme. The cover of the 1991 single, Everybody in the Place, by British electronic dance band The Prodigy, features a photograph of the now removed corkscrew roller coaster. During the planning stages of SW5, the ride had a very different concept design. The design saw the roller coaster in a post-apocalyptic land, with steampunk-style aircraft carrying the guests around the wasteland. It's interesting to see how this concept could have tied in with the Nemesis story. Perhaps with Nemesis causing all of the destruction in the land, and air being the means of escape from Nemesis. But ultimately, this plan was scrapped in favour of creating a peaceful oasis theme to contrast Nemesis. In 2004, as part of the marketing campaign for Spinball Whizzer, Alton Towers made an online game called Spinball Whizzer the Game. The game was a virtual pinball machine where you could launch the pinball and try and get into various parts of the machine, which were themed to Alton Towers attractions, and featured music and sound effects. You could even win prizes for getting a high score. The game is actually still playable through the Internet Archive, so go check it out if you're interested. I'll link it down in the description. Britain's Strongest Man is an annual strongman competition held in the UK. Participants compete for the title of Britain's Strongest Man, and the winner qualifies for the World's Strongest Man competition. Events for the competition include tyre flips, chain drags, Atlas stones, and keg tossing. In 1999 and 2000, the competition was held in Alton Towers and was won by Glenn Ross, also known as the Daddy, both years. Glenn also won the competition the following year when it was held in Minehead. He later went on to win the title of UK's Strongest Man 5 times, as well as placing 3rd in the Arnold Strongman Classic in 2005. Before the redevelopment of Fantasy World to X Sector, one of the concepts for the area was a steampunk-style area named Port Discovery. This was the favoured design at the time, and Two Swords even trademarked its name in late 1994. In addition, the original concept of Oilblivion, although it was unknown what its name would have been, were a large Victorian-style drill burrowing into the ground. When the Black Hole received an internal upgrade in 1996, the plans for the area were still the Port Discovery concept. Hence the interior of the Black Hole station was decorated in a steampunk style, with copper metal theming. Later, in 1997, the concept of X Sector and Oilblivion were trademarked, with the slogan "Don't Look Down." The exterior of the Black Hole was also updated to blend in with the surroundings, however the station retained its unique theming. It's not known why the plans changed, but the area would have been very different if they stuck with the original concepts. Why is Alton Towers so obsessed with steampunk theming, and why does it never work out? The marketing team of Alton Towers has been very creative in the past, offering weird ways to save money on your visit, and often making headlines with their wacky promotions. Here are some of the strangest ones. A Mother's Day promotion where a free fast track for 13 was offered to mothers who visited the park. An Airline Chaos promotion where Alton Towers as well as Thorpe Park offered free entry to those affected by the 2005 dispute at Heathrow Airport. An A-level failure promotion where people who received all U grades in their A-levels were offered free entry. And last but not least, the superhero promotion where free entry was offered to guests accompanied by a superhero, although the superhero still had to pay for entry. Before Ripsaw opened, the ride's concepts and name were different. The original name was The Screw, and the theme was based on nuclear fallout. It's unknown as to why the name was changed. It might have been due to potential confusion with the Corkscrew in Festival Park, and the Screw Fountain in the Gardens. Nothing at all to do with the name. What would the ride's tagline have been? Get screwed, perhaps? In 2006, Alton Towers planned to add a zipline attraction to the park, which would take guests from the roof of the towers onto the front lawn near the Skyride station. At the time, this would have made it the UK's longest zipline. The proof of concept used for the attraction was a zipline attraction named Free to Speed, which was part of the PlayStation 2 Freedom Weekender event at the park. Images and information from the Freedom Weekender were used as evidence in the planning documentation for the attraction, which would have been named Vertigo. Vertigo would have likely been a pay-per-play type attraction, and was only intended to be a temporary attraction to the park, as indicated on the planning permission that was only sought until 2008. All infrastructure involved would have been temporary, including temporary scaffolding-style structures, which ultimately could have been added and removed from the ruins without any damage. Whilst Vertigo did manage to make it onto the first version of the 2006 map, ultimately the idea was shelved, and the application withdrawn before it went to the planning committee. In 2008, Alton Towers conducted surveys regarding the new themed area that they would bring to the park in 2010. The Dark Forest seemed to be the most popular choice, and Alton Towers began planning concepts for the area. The other concepts included rock blasting and robots, which came along with the intriguing idea of a robot arm ride. But ultimately it was settled on the Dark Forest. When planning their new roller coaster for the Dark Forest area, many different ideas came up, including an inverted coaster, a tilt coaster, and even a vertical launch coaster. It was eventually settled on 13, the world's first vertical freefall drop coaster. However, one feature from the original concepts did make it into the final design: the switch track near the end of the roller coaster. Originally, it was not only Ogland that was a candidate for a retheme, X-Sector was too. And along with the robot theme, there were 2 attractions planned for the area. Dueling Dead Stars, a variation of the robot arm concept, as well as a robo-coaster, which appears to have been planned to go inside of the black hole tent. In March 2011, 33-year-old Rob Roy Collins hung upside down 60 feet in the air from the track of Rita wearing a straitjacket. He performed a Houdini-style escape. This happened on what would have been Harry Houdini's 137th birthday, performing his famous stunt as a tribute. He successfully escaped in a time of 1 minute and 53 seconds, beating Houdini's own record. In 2010, Alton Towers revealed plans to open a new 4D cinema at the park in the old ice tent in the Storybook Land area. The original plan was actually for this to become a Shrek 4D experience, with the whole of Storybook Land being rethemed to Far, Far Away, and it was planned to be opened in 2011. However, later on in 2010, these plans were cancelled because DreamWorks, the creator of Shrek, were unhappy with the quality of the proposed Far Far Away retheme for Storybook Land. The 4D cinema did go ahead, but in Cloud Cuckoo Land in the Cuckoo Land Theatre, as the Ice Age 4D experience. But I personally would have loved to see a Shrek-themed area at Alton Towers. Project Dolphin was one of Tussauds' 2005 concepts for Alton Towers, which focused on immersive theming and once-in-a-lifetime experiences such as swimming with tropical fishes. The concepts included themed areas which had unique names such as Lost Lagoon, Shimmering Shoals, and Key Tropicalia. Another idea centered on a Lost Temple theme, which seems to have been an idea for the redevelopment of the ice arena, which would close at the end of 2005. Whilst these concepts never came to fruition, some of the ideas were later revisited by Merlin and used in the development of Sharkbait Reef, Merlin's sea life brand. At the Oxford service station of Junction 8A of the M40, there is a large water fountain display. This is often referred to as Rippy Fountain, due to it resembling the fountains of the former Ripsaw ride at Alton Towers. The Crux was an interactive Christian attraction which debuted in the chapel of the Towers complex in 2003. The attraction was a joint project between Alton Towers and the Youth for Christ organisation and local churches in the area. The aim of the attraction was to present the Christian faith to young people using interactive sensory technology. Jack Williams, a member of Youth for Christ, who helped at the attraction, said that the idea is to give people who haven't thought about faith the chance to start thinking from a Christian perspective. The Crux ran for 2 seasons at Alton Towers, and is said to have reached around 60,000 people. The Spaceboat was an inverting pirate ship style ride, which opened at the start of the 1983 season in the Injustice Centre. It only operated for 1 season, and due to its late addition in the season, it was never shown on any map at the park or any promotional material. Therefore, it is one of the lesser known attractions at Alton Towers, and it was actually very difficult to find any information about this attraction at all. It is believed that the ride was removed due to increasing height restrictions at the park, and after its removal, it has moved to various parks in the UK, including Dreamland Margate, Lightwater Valley, and Loudon Castle. In 2012, a charity event took place in London named the Big Egg Hunt, also known as the Fabergé Egg Hunt, since it was sponsored by the jeweller Fabergé. The campaign was in aid of Action for Children and Elephant Family. As part of the campaign, around 200 artists, celebrities, and designers created and painted metre-high fiberglass eggs, which were then placed in various locations in London. Londoners had 40 days from the 21st February 2012 to locate the various giant eggs around the capital. To promote the upcoming Nemesis Subterra ride at Alton Towers, the park designed a Subterra egg to be used in the egg hunt. Unfortunately, the egg was deemed too scary to take part in the egg hunt. Catherine Duckworth, the then spokeswoman for Alton Towers, said the other eggs are also beautiful and eye-catching, but that's resulted in this nightmare of our ugly egg becoming excluded. Several of the locations called us last minute to say that our Nemesis Subterra egg was just too repulsive for the area, even if it was hidden. Our egg was always supposed to be scary to represent the theme of the new attraction, but we never expected this kind of backlash. But it was good publicity nonetheless. On June 15th, 1987, a one-off charity event named the Grand Knockout Tournament, also known as It's a Royal Knockout, was filmed on the lakeside lawn at Alton Towers. The show, which later aired on the 19th of June in the UK, featured members of the royal family such as Prince Edward, Princess Anne, the Duke and Duchess of York, who each represented different teams for their chosen charities. On each team was a variety of sporting and showbiz celebrities, including John Cleese, Nicholas Lyndhurst, Tom Jones, Meatloaf, and Gary Lineker. The contestants competed in numerous games. For example, in one round, the players dressed up as giant vegetables, while in another they threw fake hams at each other. The tournament was ultimately won by the Princess Royals team, with the Duke of York's team second, Prince Edward's team third, and the Duchess of York's team finishing last. Reportedly, the Queen disapproved of the event and had advised against it. Neither she, the Duke of Edinburgh, nor the Prince and Princess of Wales agreed to take part, but Prince Edward, who organised the event, persevered, and the project went to completion. The event drew an audience of 18 million domestically, making it fourth on the most watched programme of the year. It was later watched by 400 million viewers worldwide, raising over £1.5 million for respective charities. In 2008, the Alton Towers marketing department came up with a concept named Project Giant Gurgle. This was said to be a coaster designed for babies, featuring teddy bear-shaped cars hanging below the steel track, surrounded by colourful theming. The concept was so bizarre, it was picked up by the press. But this concept ultimately turned out to be one of Alton Towers' infamous PR stunts. But personally, I think this is a very cool concept. In 2011, Alton Towers began a search for 20 coaster cuties to become the official face of 13. The competition was launched by the Earning Waves Essex star Amy Childs. Winners took part in a photo shoot and would be featured on the official 2012-13 calendar. This was a somewhat controversial PR stunt, but apparently there were over 1,000 entries. The calendar was available as a free download from the Alton Towers website. My personal favourite month is April with the Easter Bunny ears. Also an honourable mention, February. So I've already touched on some of the weird and wacky promotions that Alton Towers has had, but one of my personal favourites that I thought deserved its own section of this iceberg was the gnome promotion, where Alton Towers offered free entry to anyone with a gnome, in response to the book Bollocks to Alton Towers, which promoted lesser-known attractions such as gnome magic and the British Lawnmower Museum. Valid entry had very specific requirements of a gnome between the height of 12 and 18 inches, including the hat. It also required traditional gnome attire, a long white beard, and a blue, red or green pointy hat. Glasses, fishing rods, walking sticks, or gardening implements were optional but preferred. Michael Bridges, the owner of Gnome Magic, was not pleased with this, concerned that it might encourage people to steal gnomes. But the aftermath of this promotion was sadly many abandoned gnomes. To finish off this iceberg, there is something that I rarely see being talked about, and honestly it deserves its own separate video. But anyway, after the success of the grand opening of Alton Towers as an amusement park in 1980, John Broome, the then owner of the park, realised that there was a huge demand for such attractions. As early as 1981, he began to search for a site for a second brand new theme park. The nearby Trentham Gardens estate was struggling financially since it had faced a decline in visitors, and was put up for sale in 1979. Noticing the similarities between Trentham Gardens and Alton Towers, John Broome purchased the estate in 1981 for an estimated £3 million. Work started immediately on the restoration of buildings and improvement of the grounds, and in 1982, John Broome announced his plans to transform the former stately home into a tourist attraction. He promised to invest £20 million over the course of 2.5 years, creating an American-style development with sporting, recreation and conference facilities, including a hotel. Broome promised that Trentham would be transformed into Europe's finest leisure centre, creating more than 1,500 jobs. The estate would be developed on the pattern of Florida's Wet n Wild water park, with the emphasis on sporting facilities, park and lakeside living, and a 4,000 capacity conference facility and a hotel running in tandem. The hotel alone was forecast to cost £5 million, with Broome admitting that the path to profitability might be longer than it was at Alton Towers. Still, he expected an annual income to eventually reach £10 million. Broome submitted his plans to the local council, and planning permission was granted in November 1982, and work commenced. The fairground, which by now was almost derelict and partly overgrown with weeds, would be converted into a small-scale adventureland, and would be aimed primarily at children. Broome immediately began to install new rides, including a bobsled-style roller coaster, a Ferris wheel, and a spinning polyp-style flat ride. A vintage car circuit, a carousel, and donkey rides were also on offer. Future additions would include a mini dragon-style roller coaster and a Wild West adventure playground. Unfortunately, there were issues with subsidence on the land due to the coal mine that the estate was built on, which had previously forced the closure of the Lido before Broome took over ownership. In 1984, John Broome sold the estate to the National Coal Board for £3 million. The National Coal Board promised to make good all the damage caused by the colliery. Broome continued to run his fairground in Trentham under a lease. However, he gradually began moving his rides from Trentham to Alton Towers, and eventually sold his lease to Country Sports International. But the story didn't end there. Later, in 1986, John Broome purchased the Battersea Power Station, in the hopes once again of creating a successful theme park, with indoor and outdoor attractions. Sadly, this once again did not work out, with the project costs increasing significantly from the original £35 million investment. It's believed that the financial troubles that Broome was facing due to this project were ultimately what made his decision to sell Alton Towers to Two Swords in the early 90s. Well, there we have it, 12 glorious layers and an hour and a half of Alton Towers facts. I hope you all enjoyed this video. It's been a long process creating this video, so if you can, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. But for now, I'm tired of hearing my own voice, and I'm sure you are too, so I'll just say thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hasta la vista, baby! Good night, Vienna! Get out now! While you still can!
Have a pleasant trip. See you around. Bye.